So it's been more than 3 weeks since the Mavericks traded Luka to the Lakers, and for some reason, they just cannot keep their former player's name out their f***ing mouth.
I thought nothing would be more pathetic than Dan Gilbert, that LeBron saga. Nico Harrison, he somehow topped it. This is new levels.
Before we start talking about the Mavericks organization, if you haven't already, make sure you leave this video a like, give us a subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on one of our videos. So right out of the gate, just want to be clear, none of the vitriol we're going to be spewing in this video is aimed at any of the Mavericks players, coaches, or fans, anyone like that. From all accounts, the players didn't want this. I'm not sure Jason Kidd wanted this based off his body language, and the fans certainly didn't want this. And it does suck that, at least in the initial aftermath of the trade, the players took some arrows because they're, getting booed at home. Fans were just still grieving, and this is the only way they can express their frustration. Like, the Mavericks are still going out, they're still playing hard, they're still trying to play hard for the fans and for the city, so I want to make it clear, this is not aimed at any of them. All that being said, it's been almost a month since the Mavericks traded Luka. We've already had a matchup between the Mavericks and the Lakers. It's going on right now, actually, as we're recording this, and yet we are still getting leaks and reports from various NBA insiders of why the Mavericks felt they had to make this trade.
I don't get it. This dude, Nico Harrison,
petty.
Luka did something to him, or I don't really know, because this dude really just hates him for some reason. I have no idea. But like you said, just leak after leak about how Luka was not the team's leader. Of course, we've heard all the reports about how Luka, was fat and out of shape. And for a sports leak to come out, professional organization, this isn't college, this is NBA, you're making a ton of money. This is intentional. The whole negotiation of the deal itself, somehow that was kept quiet. I know it was 2 guys, but that was kept quiet. But now when it's coming to leaks about all these things they didn't like about Luka, it's somehow everywhere.
I mean, they're coming off as like a bitter ex who keeps posting workout videos or inspirational quotes on their social media type shit. Just trying to justify to themselves why they made this decision and why it's the right decision when it was clearly the wrong decision. So, all the stories coming out from the Mavericks, this whole smear campaign they're running against Luka, it's pathetic for an organization that it's been held in pretty high regard for the past 20-ish years. So let's go back through all the leaks and all the damage control Dallas has tried to do in the last month. And immediately after the trade, we got the reports from Tim McMahon about how the Mavericks had major concerns about Luka's conditioning and committing the Supermax to him. They said his weight had ballooned into the 260s, which, yeah, it's not great, but Luka's 6'7". Am I the only one who thinks 260, 270 is not that outrageous of a weight for him, especially because it wasn't affecting his play?
I mean, dude was looking a little bit big, no doubt about that, but like you said, it wasn't crazy and it wasn't affecting his play. Sure, he got injured recently. Who knows how much of that was because of the weight, but I mean, dude was still balling out in the playoffs last year, was still having a very good season this year. He wasn't pushing 300 pounds. Dude's looking a little bit fat. We've said in previous videos, look at him the bubble rookie year, much skinnier, but this wasn't ruining his entire career, Maybe it's contributing to a little bit more injuries, but like you said, he's not 300 pounds.
And he led the NBA playoffs last year in minutes played. He played over 40 minutes a game and averaged 29, 9.5, and 8. And in his entire career, the least amount of games he's played in a season is 61. This was the first major injury of his career. So all the reports of oh, the Mavericks feared this would end up like a Joel Embiid situation. The guy who's habitually injured every single year, can barely play half the games he's supposed to. That's not what Luka has been at all.
And immediately the damage control, it starts off in that opening press conference, a press conference that I'm a little bit surprised even happened and felt extremely awkward. Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd are there. You have Nico Harrison starting out with a shitty joke talking about oh, I'm surprised all these people are here.
Whoa,
oh yeah, what's going on? Did something happen? And then you have Jason Kidd just completely feeling so awkward, just does not want to be there. Nico Harrison thanks Rob Pelinka for not letting anything leak to the press or leak at all, and it's no shit.
Yeah.
Dude wanted to make sure this deal happened. He wasn't going to risk anything for that.
Yeah, because it came out that, the Mavericks are shopping Luka. Every single team is calling him. There might be some teams from overseas that would call the Mavericks.
Bro did not tell his wife about the trade.
Yeah. He'd go on to say he didn't consult his head coach about trading their franchise player, which And he would go on to talk more about Maxi Kleber than Luka. He'd say that defense wins championships less than a year after his team lost the NBA Finals because they had an inept offense. And he talked about how they wanted to get in front of a tumultuous summer despite Luka apparently giving no indication he wouldn't re-sign with them. He said the owner laughed at him when he first suggested the trade. And he capped all this off by saying he basically didn't care where the franchise would be in 10 years. He was just focused on the next 3 or 4 years. Like, this is genuinely one of the most tone-deaf, out-of-touch press conferences I've seen, not just in sports, but maybe in anything.
I don't really understand how Nico Harrison has like all of this power here. Maybe that's how front offices work and literally the GM can do whatever the hell he wants. But if the owner's laughing in your face, you're not consulting Jason Kidd. Wasn't the report Mark Cuban tried to like sway him away from trading Luka?
Tried to stop it, but it was too late.
How the fuck does Nico Harrison just have all the cards here to do whatever the hell he wants?
About a day later, we got a report from Will Kane, so, you know, pinch of salt here. But he said that the Mavericks did not expect this level of backlash from trading Luka. I think that's probably true, but at the same time, how? How can you be this disconnected from your fan base?
I think they're literally just that out of touch. Like, I literally believe they believed that, but again, like you said, how is that possible? A week later, we get the report from Mark Stein that goes into detail about kind of why they didn't offer Luka the Supermax. And he said that Nico Harrison believed that after the Mavs lost to Boston in the finals, that Luka wouldn't commit to conditioning, wouldn't commit to being more disciplined with his diets, and he wouldn't improve as a leader / culture setter. One of the dumbest takes I've ever heard. I mean, is he just ignoring the fact that Luka was dealing with like 3 injuries, getting injections just to play? He was wrapped up with everything, had just led them through this Western Conference gauntlet. What else is he supposed to do?
Oh, while playing 40 minutes a game. Also, I find that discipline quote really funny because, fun fact, when Nico Harrison was at Nike, he didn't have enough discipline to double check and make sure he had loaded up the right PowerPoint when he was making a presentation to Steph Curry. This is actually true. He loaded up a PowerPoint meant for Kevin Durant when he was trying to sell Steph on signing with Nike. Also might have called Steph Seth by accident and then didn't offer him a signature shoe. Botched the entire presentation, and that led to Steph signing with Under Armour. So Nico, don't go telling me about, oh, discipline and whatnot. You couldn't even double check to make sure you had loaded up the right file before one of the most important presentations of your career.
And also, you made this point before we started recording, like, imagine if the Cavs would have traded LeBron after the 07 finals. They're like, oh, Bruce Bowen locked him up.
Yeah.
Like, this dude sucks. He's not gonna commit to conditioning. Oh, 2011, he played like shit. LeBron's terrible. You can't trade your best player, one of the greatest players of all time, based off of one bad final series.
And by the way, Luka played significantly better in the 2024 finals than LeBron did in the 2007 NBA finals.
Yeah, either of those finals. Like, Luka wasn't great last year in the finals, but he's super banged up, and he was just bad. He wasn't awful. Just compared to Luka's standards, he was bad.
Same day as that Mark Stein story, another story came out, this time from Mavericks governor Patrick Dumas trying to justify the trade. He invoked the names of Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Kobe Bryant, and Shaq, describing them as guys who, quote, worked really hard every day with a singular focus to win. Now, I'm not going to try to disparage the names of these legends or accuse them of not working hard because they all clearly did. But all 4 of these guys have very well documented incidents that fly in the face of that, quote, singular focus to win statement. Michael Jordan gambling in Atlantic City the day before playoff games. Larry Bird getting into a bar fight during the 1985 playoffs and his play dropping off a cliff after said fight. Kobe overshooting in the 2004 NBA Finals to his team's detriment, and if you believe some, quitting on his team in Game 7 of the 2006 playoffs against Phoenix. And finally, Shaq, who by his own admission did not work out in the summer, tried to play his way into shape, and one time actually delayed having surgery he could have had done in the offseason until the season had actually started, and then gave the quote, I got hurt on company time, so I'll rehab on company time. The first 3 I can excuse, like the mythology of Michael, Bird, and Kobe. It's grown so big that it can be easy to forget incidents like that. The Shaq one is inexcusable, and it represents just a clear lack of even basic knowledge about the history of the NBA.
I mean, when I read that and I saw Shaq, I had to start laughing.
Yeah.
Like, does he not know the history of like the biggest feud in NBA history, the Shaq and Kobe?
Yep.
Where Kobe got mad because he thought Shaq should have been working harder. How do you not know that? And how do you bring up Shaq? Like so many other NBA legends you could have brought up. You could have brought up Hakeem. You could have brought up like the OGs, Wilt, Bill Russell, whoever.
David Robinson.
Yeah. Dudes who worked their ass off.
Or you know what you could have done? You could have brought up the name of a guy who literally has a statue in front of your fucking arena. Could have brought up Dirk Nowitzki. Didn't do it.
Nah, he's like Shaq. Which, no disrespect to Shaq. Obviously, Shaq did work hard, but there's also other points in his career, the famous feud with Kobe, where he could have worked harder.
I mean, there's a story where like it's preseason Lakers training camp and Kobe is like busting his ass, you know, training, getting into shape. And he gets furious because Shaq walks into practice with a Big Mac in both hands.
Yeah, that's a famous one.
That's the guy? That's the guy, really?
Then we had the Mavericks' first home game since the trade. According to reports, and we saw the videos, like there was maybe hundreds or even up to 1,000 outside protesting. And then even going inside the arena, you had signs confiscated. Fans were told to turn their shirts inside out. Then during the Mavericks' second game, you had a fan shown on the Jumbotron. He mouthed the words, "Fire Nico," and got ejected from the arena. Like, this shit sounds like a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Like, is this 1984 George Orwell shit going on?
Had a totalitarian regime
Right, what is going on?
Rising up in the middle of the country. Apparently the justification from the Mavericks was the fans violated the NBA code of conduct, which, you know, prohibits like profanity or like disparaging remarks about any people or persons or whatever. Bullshit. Bullshit. Like if an opposing team comes down, like when the Lakers come to town, if a fan comes into the arena with a shirt that has LeBron's face on it and like a clown nose on it, you think he's gonna be asked to take that shirt off? Because fans were asked to take that shirt off when it was Nico Harrison's face and the clown nose on it. But if that's LeBron, I have a feeling he's gonna be let in the arena.
There was also the fake report from Centel that came out, the one that said if fans were wearing a Luka Doncic jersey, that would get confiscated as well. And good old Colin Coward fell for that one.
Did he actually?
Yeah, he did.
I saw a story where they won't let Luka jerseys in the building in Dallas.
Oh, Colin.
I had to point that out because that shit was also hilarious. Not true, but hilarious.
Then a couple days later, one of the main social media admins for the Mavericks posted on their own personal account like a really heartfelt tribute to Luka that was apparently very well received by fans. A couple hours after it was posted, it was deleted and her account went private. So not sure if she got the call from anyone upstairs, but again, this is just, it's a fucking horrible look for this organization.
But this wasn't their final social media mishap. They had that music video that got put out by that Dallas rapper. You know, the video featured several clips where Luka, dude, just straight up blacked out. They threw like the Mavericks logo over him. Honestly, kind of impressive editing job there.
They made it look nice at the very least, yeah.
But like, what the actual fuck are you guys doing? Like, I don't understand this disrespect whatsoever. Like, even if it was a situation like, let's say the most drastic, when LeBron left the first time in Cleveland, sure, Dan Gilbert did the Comic Sans letter, that was crazy, but there was nothing even to this level, and they traded him.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't leave, he has not shamed the Mavericks, and the disrespect is crazy.
Yeah, and like the reason I've heard was, oh, well, he's a former player now. Like they do this with all former players. If he's not on the team anymore, you know, they black him out because he's not a part of the organization anymore. First of all, if that's true, just use footage that Luka's not in at all. It can't be that hard, right? You have hundreds, if not thousands of hours worth of footage of that team. Surely you can find some good shots without Luka. Secondly, interesting to say that considering there's a banner of Maxi Kleber very easily spotted within the first 30 seconds of this music video. His face is there, his name is there, everything not blacked out. So which one is it?
And then on top of that, you'd think, okay, the Mavericks probably would have had to delete that, you know, apologize, everything. That was on them. They did the editing. No, they didn't say anything. The rapper is who apologized.
Yeah.
I doubt he had any say in the actual like editing, the production of that video.
I don't need to doubt it. I know he had no say in the editing or production.
He had to apologize. Like, what is going on here?
And then finally today, we got another report, this time from Mark Spears, saying that Jaylen Brown was the reason that the Mavericks traded Luka. He said, you know, the job that Brown did on Luka made Mavericks management question whether Luka could be the leader of their team. And again, like you brought it up earlier, the LeBron example, like this is such a fucking dumb way to think about things. And the cherry on top, we got another report from Mark Stein, this time saying that if the deal had fallen through at the deadline, the Mavs were determined to trade Luka this summer. And the great quote here is, Harrison no longer wanted Planet Mavericks to orbit around Luka. This quote just tells me this guy has no idea how the NBA works. because like, what do we think planet Timberwolves orbits around? It's Anthony Edwards. What do we think planet Thunder orbits around? It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This is a star-driven league where the stars have more power, more privileges than the average player. It's how it's always been. It's how it's always going to be. And the fact that he couldn't get over this, again, do you not know how the sport you are a GM for a team for works?
I mean, we got to get the Blazers mention in. I'll get it in right here.
Yep.
The Portland Trail Blazers have never had a player as good as Luka Doncic. And just the fact that they traded him away, like he was determined. It wasn't like it happened. He didn't have like this awful injury. He was determined to get this dude out of Dallas. Again, we have to say, you just feel bad for the Mavericks fans. I mean, they had their title. They had Dirk. It was great. You know, they're a little bit spoiled to get Luka right after that. But even then, the ego trip Nico Harrison was on to make this happen, and maybe still is, generational ego trip and just horrific. This is crazy.
So that's the full timeline, and candidly, I mean, what a fucking embarrassing month for the Mavericks. Like, they keep trashing the guy, like you said, who rescued their franchise after Dirk was slowing down, Dirk was done. They were one of the worst teams in the league. They get this guy, brings him immediately back to being a player in the Western Conference. And like Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, they're not in Dallas if not for Luka Doncic. And they're doing all this while Luka has said literally nothing negative about them at all. Like, this is like the Skip Bayless LeBron relationship. One side just keeps piling on with negativity, and the other side says nothing. It just reads like a GM who didn't like his star for whatever reason, despite his production, and just traded him away without a thought of how it would affect the team, the fans, or the city. And I mean, we've said it many times, but this is a trade that Dallas will regret probably forever. That's the video, guys. What do you think of the Mavericks smear campaign against Luka? I'd love your chat to say in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving it a like, as it really does help us out. And while you're here, why not check out some of our other videos as well? And don't forget to subscribe to Synthetic Sports.